Chosen one, God is watching. Stop this before he removes what he gave you. There was a man who once walked through his days with a quiet blessing resting over his life, though he did not always notice it or understand its value fully. His days were simple, his nights were calm, and even in the middle of struggles, there was always something that held him together and carried him forward. That unseen strength was not luck or chance, but a gift that had been placed in his life by God with care and intention. It was something given not because he was perfect, but because he was chosen to carry it and grow through it. Type 555 to affirm. Somewhere along the way, the man began to forget the source of what he had been given, and his focus slowly shifted toward the noise of the world instead of the quiet voice within his heart. He started to treat what was once sacred as something ordinary, something that would always remain no matter how he lived or how he chose his steps. That is how the danger begins, not in loud destruction, but in quiet neglect that slowly weakens what once stood strong. If this story is touching something inside you, take a moment to show your support by liking this video, because that simple action helps this truth reach someone else who may be standing at the same turning point without realizing it. God watched the man with patience, not with anger, but with a deep understanding of his struggle and his confusion. Every step the man took was seen, every thought that weighed on him was known, and every moment where he could have chosen differently was gently marked by a loving presence that never left him alone. God does not rush to take away what he has given, because his nature is filled with mercy, but he also does not ignore when something sacred is being slowly lost. The man reached a point where the peace he once carried began to fade, and the strength he once relied on felt distant and weak. It was not because God had turned away, but because the man had begun to step away from what was keeping him close to that divine connection. The gift had not vanished suddenly, but it had started to dim, like a light that is no longer being cared for or protected from the wind. In that quiet place of emptiness, the man felt something he could not explain, a gentle call that was not loud but deeply clear, reminding him of what he once had and what he was slowly losing. It was not a voice of fear, but a voice of love that was asking him to return, to stop, and to recognize what truly mattered before it slipped further from his hands. Jesus has always taught that the heart is where everything begins, and it is also where everything can be restored if it is opened with honesty and humility. The man remembered moments when he felt close to God, moments when his spirit was light and his path felt guided, and he realized that those moments were not gone forever, but waiting for him to return with sincerity. God's watching is not meant to frighten or control, but to protect and guide, to keep what is good from being lost through carelessness or distraction. When God watches over you, it means that you are seen, valued, and held in a love that does not want you to fall into a place where you lose what was meant to bless your life. It means that even when you drift, there is still a path back, still a hand reaching out, still a chance to stop and turn before something precious fades away completely. The man slowly began to change his steps, not with sudden perfection, but with small, meaningful choices that brought him closer to the truth he had forgotten. He started to protect what he once ignored, to value what he once took for granted, and to listen to the quiet voice that had never truly left him. As he did this, the light within him began to grow again, not instantly, but steadily, like a flame being carefully shielded and fed. This is how God works in every life, not by forcing, but by inviting, not by condemning, but by guiding with patience and love. What has been given to you carries purpose, and it carries a blessing that is meant to stay, but it also asks for your care, your attention, and your willingness to stay connected to the one who placed it in your life. There is something within you right now that is worth protecting, something that has been placed there with intention and love, and it is not too late to recognize it, to hold on to it, and to nurture it with a heart that is awake and aware. God is not waiting to take it away, but He is calling you to value it before it begins to fade through neglect. It felt like a gentle awakening, not loud or overwhelming, but steady and real. Like the first light of morning, slowly touching the edges of a dark night that had lasted too long, he started to notice the small things again, the peace that once visited him in silence, the warmth that used to settle in his chest when he chose kindness, and the calm that came when he walked in alignment with what he knew was right. Have you noticed how some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly? A leaked CIA document may finally explain why. Scientists studying brainwaves uncovered a simple 7-second ritual believed to activate a powerful abundance response inside the mind. Backed by 4 neuroscience labs, this at-home technique is helping people move from financial struggle to dream lifestyles filled with money, success, travel, and peace of mind. The most unbelievable part is how easy it is to do, but this information could be removed without warning. Click the link in the description and comments now, before it is gone forever. There was a softness in his spirit now, a willingness to listen instead of rushing forward without thought, and this change began to guide his steps in ways he could not fully explain. He no longer ignored the quiet pull that urged him to pause, to reflect, and to turn away from things that drained his strength and pulled him further from the gift that had once lived so strongly within him. Each time he chose to listen, even in small ways, he felt a gentle return of something he thought he had lost forever, and that feeling became a quiet reminder that God had never truly left him. As he walked through his days, he began to understand that what had been given to him was never meant to exist without care or attention, but was something living, something that needed to be protected and nurtured with intention. The gift within him was not just a blessing to enjoy, but a responsibility to honor, a light that needed to be guarded so it could continue to shine and bring meaning to his life. This realization did not bring fear, but a sense of purpose that felt grounding and real, like stepping onto a path that had always been waiting for him to find it again. Type 1919 to receive miracles. There were still moments when he felt pulled back toward old habits, toward the distractions that once led him away from what truly mattered, and those moments tested his resolve in ways that felt challenging and uncomfortable. Yet, even in those moments, there was something different now, something steady that reminded him of the cost of turning away again, and the quiet beauty of staying aligned with what was good. He did not always choose perfectly, but he began to choose more wisely, and that was enough to keep him moving forward instead of falling back completely. Jesus taught through love, through patience, and through the understanding that growth is a journey, not a sudden transformation, and the man began to see this truth unfold within his own life. He realized that he was not expected to be flawless, but to be faithful, to keep turning back when he drifted, and to keep protecting what had been placed in his care. This understanding lifted a weight from his heart and replaced it with a gentle strength that allowed him to continue without fear of failure. As days turned into weeks, the man noticed that the peace he had once lost was slowly returning, not in overwhelming waves, but in quiet moments that filled his heart with a calm assurance. It came when he chose honesty over convenience, when he showed kindness even when it was difficult, and when he paused to listen instead of rushing through his life without awareness. These moments became like small lights along his path, guiding him forward and reminding him that he was moving in the right direction. God's watching presence remained with him, not as something heavy or fearful, but as something comforting and constant, like a gentle hand resting over his life. He began to understand that being seen by God meant being cared for, being guided, and being protected from losing what was meant to bring him peace and purpose. This understanding changed the way he saw his life, turning even simple choices into meaningful steps that carried weight and value. There were times when the man felt tired, when the effort of staying aligned felt like more than he could carry, and in those moments he would sit quietly and allow his heart to rest in the presence of God. He did not need to say much, and he did not need to do anything grand, because the connection was not built on performance, but on sincerity. In that stillness, he would feel a quiet reassurance, a reminder that he was not walking alone, and that the strength he needed would always be given to him when he truly sought it. Slowly, the man began to see how his choices affected not only his own life, but the lives of those around him, and this awareness deepened his desire to protect the gift he had been given. He saw how his peace brought calm to others, how his kindness created warmth in places that felt cold, and how his quiet strength became a light that others could feel even without words. This realization made him more careful, more intentional, and more grateful for what he had been trusted with. There was a moment when he looked back at who he had been, at the times when he had ignored the quiet voice and allowed his gift to fade, and instead of feeling shame, he felt gratitude for being given another chance. He understood that not everyone pauses in time, not everyone turns back before something is lost, and the fact that he had been able to do so was a sign of grace that he did not want to take lightly again. Type 2323, if you agree. The man's life did not become perfect, and challenges still came in ways that tested his patience and his strength, but he faced them differently now, with a heart that was rooted in something deeper than his circumstances. He no longer relied only on his own understanding, but leaned on the quiet guidance that had begun to lead him step by step. This shift changed everything, not on the outside, but within, where true change always begins. God's love continued to shape him, not by force, but by presence, by the steady reminder that he was seen, known, and cared for beyond what he could fully understand. The gift that had once dimmed was now growing again, stronger and steadier than before, because it was no longer taken for granted, but protected with intention and love. This growth was not loud or dramatic, but deeply real, like roots growing stronger beneath the surface where no one else could see. This may sound unbelievable, but thousands of people are talking about a secret 7-second ritual connected to leaked CIA research. The method is designed to shift your brain into a frequency linked to wealth, abundance, and opportunity. People who once lived paycheck to paycheck claim they are now seeing dramatic financial changes, from unexpected money to luxury purchases and dream vacations. 4 neuroscience labs reportedly tested the technique and confirmed its powerful mental effects. You were guided to this for a reason, but this page may not stay online much longer. Click the link in the description and comments now before the secret disappears. The man came to understand that what God gives is never meant to be wasted or ignored, but cherished and nurtured so it can continue to bless and guide. He learned that stopping, turning back, and choosing differently is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of wisdom and courage, a decision that can restore what seemed close to being lost. And in that understanding, he found a peace that did not depend on circumstances, but on a connection that could never truly be taken away, as long as he chose to hold on to it. This is the quiet truth that lives within every heart, the gentle call to recognize what has been given and to protect it before it begins to fade. It is not about fear of losing, but about love for what has been placed in your life and the desire to honor it with the care it deserves. When you choose to stop, to listen, and to turn back, you are not only saving what was given, but also opening the door for it to grow in ways you may have never imagined. It was not just that his peace had returned or that his strength had begun to grow again, but there was now a deeper awareness of how easily something precious could slip away when it was no longer treated with care and intention. This awareness did not make him anxious or afraid, but it made him more present, more thoughtful, and more rooted in every choice he made throughout his days. He started to walk through life with a different kind of attention, noticing the moments that once passed him by without meaning, and recognizing how each small decision carried weight that shaped his path in ways he had not understood before. When he spoke, he chose his words with kindness and patience, knowing that even simple words could either protect or weaken the light within him. When he acted, he paused just enough to feel whether his steps were leading him closer to what was good, or quietly pulling him away again without him realizing it. Type 11111 if you trust in God. There were still times when the world around him felt loud and overwhelming, pulling him in different directions, with promises that seemed easy and appealing, yet carried no real peace within them. In those moments, the man felt the old pull returning, the same quiet temptation to drift away from what truly mattered and settle for something less meaningful. But now there was a difference, because his heart had learned to recognize the difference between what felt good for a moment and what carried lasting peace that stayed even after the moment passed. He remembered the way his life once felt when he ignored the quiet guidance within him, how the light had dimmed slowly without him even noticing at first, and how empty everything became when that connection weakened. That memory became a gentle anchor, not something that held him back, but something that reminded him why it was worth choosing carefully, even when the easier path seemed more inviting. It helped him stay grounded in truth, instead of being carried away by temporary distractions that could never truly satisfy his spirit. The presence of God in his life became something he no longer questioned or overlooked, but something he felt in the simplest and most ordinary moments that others might not even notice. It was there in the calm he felt when he chose honesty, in the warmth that filled him when he showed kindness without expecting anything in return, and in the quiet strength that held him steady when things around him felt uncertain or unstable. These small but meaningful experiences became reminders that God's watching was not distant or detached, but close, gentle, and deeply personal. There came a day when the man faced a situation that tested him more than anything he had experienced since his change had begun, and it felt like a moment that could either strengthen everything he had rebuilt or slowly undo it again. The choice before him was not loud or dramatic, but it carried a deep weight, because it asked him to either stay aligned with what he had learned or to return to the patterns he had once left behind. His heart felt the tension of that moment, and for a brief time he stood still, unsure of what to do. In that stillness, he remembered something simple yet powerful, something that had quietly grown within him over time, and that was the understanding that he was never alone in any decision he faced. He closed his eyes for a moment, not to escape, but to listen, to allow the quiet voice within him to rise above the noise that surrounded him. And there it was again, calm and steady, not forcing him, not demanding anything, but gently guiding him toward what would protect what he had been given. Type 2020 to claim miracles. The man chose differently that day, not because it was easy, but because it was right, and that choice became a turning point that strengthened his heart in a way he had never felt before. It was not about winning or losing, but about staying true to what he now understood, about protecting the gift within him instead of risking it for something that would only bring temporary satisfaction. That moment became a quiet victory, one that no one else saw, but one that changed something deep within him in a lasting way. As time passed, he began to see that every choice like that added to something greater, something that was slowly building a stronger foundation within his life. It was not about being perfect or never making mistakes, but about consistently choosing to return, to realign, and to protect what mattered, even when it required effort and patience. This consistency became a quiet strength that carried him through moments that once would have pulled him away without hesitation. A newly revealed 7-second brainwave method, backed by neuroscience and once hidden in classified documents, is helping thousands activate their brain's wealth setting. People refer to it as the money magnet sound because of how quickly it appears to attract abundance. Click the link in the description and comments below to awaken the prosperity already within you. Jesus' teachings about love, patience, and humility became clearer to him, not as distant ideas, but as living truths that he could experience in his daily life. He understood that love was not just something to feel, but something to practice, something that shaped the way he treated others and himself. He saw that patience was not about waiting without purpose, but about trusting that growth takes time and that every step forward, no matter how small, carried meaning. The man also began to notice how his relationship with God was no longer something he only thought about during difficult times, but something that stayed with him even in moments of calm and joy. It was a steady connection, not based on fear or obligation, but on a quiet trust that grew stronger with every step he took in alignment with what he knew was right. This trust became his anchor, something that held him steady even when life around him felt uncertain or challenging. There were still days when he felt weak, when his energy was low and his spirit felt heavy. But even in those moments, he did not feel lost the way he once did. He knew where to turn, not outward, but inward, toward the presence that had never left him, even when he had drifted away. That awareness gave him comfort, a quiet assurance that he could always find his way back no matter how he felt in the moment. Slowly, the man began to see that what God had given him was not just for his own life, but something that could touch others in ways he might never fully understand. His peace began to influence the people around him. His kindness created moments of warmth in places that needed it, and his quiet strength became something that others could feel even without words. This realization deepened his sense of responsibility, not in a heavy or burdensome way, but in a way that felt meaningful and purposeful. He no longer saw his life as something random or without direction, but as something guided, something shaped by choices that carried deeper significance than he had once realized. Every step he took became an opportunity to either protect what he had been given or to slowly allow it to fade. And this awareness kept him grounded in a way that felt both gentle and strong at the same time. The man continued forward, not with fear of losing what he had, but with a deep appreciation for its value and a sincere desire to protect it with care and intention. He understood now that God's watching was not something to run from, but something to trust, something that ensured he was never alone and never without guidance, even in the most uncertain moments of his life. There was a deeper purpose behind the peace he carried, behind the strength that had quietly returned, and behind the light that now felt more alive within him than it had ever been before. This understanding did not come all at once, but slowly, like a gentle unfolding that revealed meaning in places he had once overlooked. He started to see that every gift from God carries a responsibility, not in a heavy or fearful way, but in a way that invites care, attention, and love. What he had been given was not meant to remain hidden or unused, but to grow, to shine, and to touch the lives of others in ways that reflected the love it came from. This realization changed how he saw even the smallest parts of his life, turning ordinary moments into opportunities to protect and share what lived within him. Type 666 if you trust Jesus. There were days when the man felt a quiet joy rise within him for no clear reason, a calm happiness that did not depend on what was happening around him, but came from something deeper and more steady. It was a sign that what he was protecting and nurturing was beginning to grow beyond what he could see, becoming something that reached into his life in ways he could not fully explain. This joy was not loud or overwhelming, but gentle and constant, like a soft light that never flickered no matter how dark the surroundings became. He also began to notice that challenges still came, but they no longer felt like something meant to break him or take away what he had been given. Instead, they became moments that revealed how strong his connection had become, showing him that what lived within him could remain steady even when things around him felt uncertain. Each challenge became a chance to choose again, to protect what mattered, and to grow stronger in ways that could not have happened without those moments of testing. There was a time when the man would have tried to handle everything on his own, relying only on his own strength and understanding. But now he moved differently, with a quiet trust that allowed him to lean on something greater than himself. This trust did not remove difficulties, but it gave him the ability to face them without losing his peace, without allowing fear or doubt to take hold of his heart. It was a quiet strength, not loud or forceful, but steady and unshakable in a way that carried him through even the hardest moments. As he continued to grow, the man began to understand something even more important, something that changed the way he saw God's watching presence in his life. He realized that it was not just about protecting what he had been given, but also about preparing him for something greater, something that required him to be ready, to be steady, and to be aligned with what was true and good. This understanding gave him a sense of direction, a quiet awareness that his life was moving towards something meaningful, even if he could not yet see it clearly. There were moments when he felt overwhelmed by the weight of this realization, not because it was heavy, but because it was important, because it meant that his choices mattered more than he had ever understood before. Yet even in those moments, he felt a gentle reassurance, a reminder that he was not expected to carry everything alone, and that the same presence that watched over him would also guide him through whatever lay ahead. Type 1111 if you trust in God. A 7-second brainwave practice, once reserved for select circles and concealed in classified files, has now been made public, and many describe it as the 30-second miracle. Experts say it awakens a dormant brain center connected to wealth and blessings. Click the link in the description and comments below to see why so many people are talking about it right now. The man's heart began to open in ways it never had before, allowing him to feel compassion more deeply, to see others with greater understanding, and to respond with kindness even when it was not returned. This change was not something he forced, but something that grew naturally as he stayed connected to the source of what had been placed within him. It became clear to him that the more he protected and nurtured what he had been given, the more it expanded, reaching beyond him and touching the lives of those around him. He noticed that people were drawn to him in quiet ways, not because of anything outward or visible, but because of the peace he carried and the warmth that came from his presence. He did not seek attention or recognition, but simply lived in a way that reflected what had been growing within him, and that reflection became something that others could feel and be comforted by. This quiet influence became one of the most meaningful parts of his journey, showing him that what God gives is never meant to stay limited to one person alone. There were still times when the man questioned himself, when he wondered if he was truly doing enough, if he was protecting what he had been given in the best way possible. In those moments, he would pause and return to stillness, allowing his heart to rest and reconnect with the presence that had been guiding him all along. And each time, he would feel that gentle reassurance again, reminding him that it was not about doing everything perfectly, but about staying sincere and willing to continue growing. As the seasons of his life continued to change, the man found that his foundation remained steady, even when circumstances shifted in unexpected ways. He no longer feared change the way he once did, because he knew that what had been placed within him could remain constant no matter what happened around him. This gave him a quiet confidence, a sense of peace that allowed him to move forward without hesitation, trusting that he would be guided every step of the way. The understanding that God is watching became something beautiful to him, something that filled him with comfort instead of fear, because he now knew that it meant he was cared for, protected, and never alone. It meant that every step he took mattered, that every choice carried meaning, and that he was part of something greater than he had ever imagined before. This understanding became the heart of his journey, the truth that shaped everything he did and everything he became. He no longer saw his life as something uncertain or fragile, but as something held and guided by a presence that would never leave him, no matter what challenges he faced or what paths he walked. This gave him a peace that could not be shaken easily, a strength that did not depend on circumstances, and a hope that remained alive even in the most difficult moments. It was a quiet, steady hope, the kind that grows slowly but deeply, becoming stronger with time and trust. The man continued forward, not because he had all the answers, but because he had found something far more valuable, a connection that guided him, strengthened him, and reminded him of who he was and what he had been given. And in that connection, he found the courage to keep protecting what mattered, to keep choosing what was good, and to keep walking a path that led him closer to the life he was meant to live. He began to understand that what God gives is never random, and it is never placed without purpose or intention, even when it feels small or unnoticed at first. The gift within him was shaping him from the inside, teaching him patience when he wanted to rush, teaching him humility when pride tried to rise, and teaching him trust when uncertainty surrounded him. Each lesson was not loud or dramatic, but quiet and real, unfolding in moments that only his heart could truly recognize. Type 2323 if you agree. There were times when the man felt a deep stillness come over him, a calm that seemed to settle in his soul in a way that made everything else feel distant and unimportant. In those moments, he could sense something greater than himself, something that held him gently and reminded him that he was exactly where he needed to be. It was not something he could explain to others easily, but it was something he could feel with certainty, a quiet presence that never demanded attention, yet never left him alone. He started to see how his past, even the parts that once felt like mistakes or failures, had played a role in bringing him to where he now stood. Nothing had been wasted, and nothing had been outside the reach of God's care and guidance, even when he had drifted away or lost sight of what truly mattered. This understanding filled him with a deep sense of peace, knowing that even the broken parts of his journey had been gently shaped into something meaningful. There were moments when life tested him again, not in the same way as before, but in new ways that required a deeper level of trust and patience than he had ever needed before. These moments did not shake him the way they once would have, because his foundation had grown stronger, rooted in something that could not easily be moved. He learned to stand firm without becoming hard, to remain gentle without becoming weak, and to trust without needing to see every step ahead clearly. A rare 7-second morning ritual, previously hidden in classified documents, is re-emerging, and people are already sharing accounts of swift financial advancement. It takes almost no time, yet it triggers a dormant wealth switch in the brain that most people never use. Click the link in the description and comments now to access it before it vanishes. In one quiet evening, as the sky slowly faded into darkness and the world around him grew still, the man found himself reflecting on everything he had experienced so far. He thought about the times he had nearly lost what had been given to him, the moments when he had ignored the quiet guidance within him, and the way his life had slowly changed when he chose to return. There was no regret in his heart now, only gratitude, because he understood that being able to turn back had been a gift in itself.